All right, hello and thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Mike Saramella. I am the Seafood Safety and Technology Specialist with New York Sea Grant. I'd like to start off by making everyone aware that today's session is being recorded and it will be made available on the resource webpage. An email will be sent out to all registered for today's event once the recording is posted. We are hosting this talk today to share some new resources we've developed in collaboration with New York State agencies, federal agencies, industry organizations, NGOs, and academic partners. But before we get started, I'd like to review some guidelines for participating in today's talk and share some background information on New York Sea Grant and the efforts that have led to the development of these resources. This talk has been set up as a Zoom meeting, which allows participants to share video and audio to facilitate a more engaging and interactive question and answer session. However, we do ask that you keep yourself muted when not speaking. If you have questions, please feel free to share them in the chat box at any time. The chat box can be found in the Zoom control panel as depicted on this slide, or you can raise your hand using the reactions button shown here. During the question and answer session, we will ask those who raise their hands to unmute and share their questions as we see them raised. For those of you not familiar with New York Sea Grant is one of 34 university-based programs under NOAA's National Sea Grant College Program. New York Sea Grant is a cooperative organization between the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Cornell University, and the SUNY system. For nearly 50 years, New York Sea Grant has worked to support novel research of use to coastal communities and economies, and has provided technical support through multidisciplinary extension and education programming. The map on this slide highlights our 8 offices located throughout the state, and you can learn more about who we are and what we do on the New York Sea Grant website at www.nyseagrant.org, which I will share in the chat box now. I'd also like to highlight that we are celebrating our 50th year serving New York's coastal communities, so be on the lookout for 50th anniversary events and activities that will begin this fall. Now to talk a bit more about why we are here today. In response to the pandemic, New York Sea Grant initiated the Seafood Processing and Marketing Task Force to begin exploring a variety of existing alternative marketing strategies and how New York producers might be able to take advantage of them to enhance their business models, expand into new markets, and access new buyers for their products. The complexities surrounding the regulation of seafood processing and marketing in New York can be daunting for those unfamiliar with food safety regulations, and producers must understand what new restrictions and regulations are in place if they wish to effectively access new markets. Ultimately, the resources that will be shared today were developed to help producers understand the alternative markets that exist for their seafood in New York, provide the information producers need to assess their ability and interest in accessing these markets, and provide them with the knowledge necessary to adjust their practices to effectively access them. Today's talk will focus on these resources, including how to navigate the regulatory guides to understand the requirements of marketing your seafood through different avenues of sale, and what information is covered in the supplementary topical resources. In addition, we have invited the Small Business Innovation Development Center at Stony Brook to join us today and share some additional resources and services they offer to New York producers. The resources we are about to share would not have been possible without the support of our Seafood Processing and Marketing Task Force. While there are too many to name individually, the organizations representing the team of industry, agency, and academic partners that contributed to these efforts are listed here. Participants from these agencies and organizations regularly engage to discuss the relevant needs of the industry and review the content and resources to ensure they were accurate and relevant. On behalf of New York Sea Grant, I would like to extend my thanks to all who contributed for your support and your time you've dedicated to the task force efforts. First, we will explore the 3 regulatory guides created and share some guidance and insights into how to effectively navigate them. These guides outline the regulatory framework surrounding the catch or harvest of wild-caught and farmed seafood in New York. A separate guide was created specifically for bivalve molluscan shellfish, which is regulated differently from other finfish and shellfish species. The resources are currently available for free online and can be accessed on New York Sea Grant's website at www.nyseagrant.org/seafood guides, which I will share in the chat box now. Simply type the URL into your web browser and you will be taken to the resource page, which looks like this. On the resource, apologies, my PowerPoint is not working very well. On the resource page, we will scroll down to first explore the interactive regulatory guides. Under the first blue heading listed, you'll see regulatory guides, and there's 3 regulatory guides available. The first covers farmed seafood, the second bivalve molluscan shellfish, and the third wild caught seafood. To the right of each title, you see the letters PDF. This is a clickable link that will open a PDF of that guide in a new window as shown on this slide. Now we will explore how to navigate the interactive guide as a PDF opened in your web browser. The interactive features highlighted today will also function offline in the interactive PDFs when viewed on your computer, tablet, or even smartphone in Adobe Acrobat Reader. We will use the Farm Seafood Guide as an example, but all 3 guides are formatted in the same way and contain the same interactive features that we will highlight here. If you scroll past the cover page to page 2, you will come to a table of contents. Each section title listed here is clickable and will take you to that section. This is demonstrated in this video by clicking on the document navigation heading, which takes us to page 4 to learn more about navigating these interactive PDFs. On this page, there are additional details on how you can effectively navigate the regulatory guides. I will be reviewing much of the information in this section with you today, but you can always refer back to this at any time for a refresher. On page 5 of each guide, there is a regulatory flow chart. This chart outlines the general steps involved in taking product from sea, tank, or pond and ultimately to the intended market. For the aquaculture guide, this starts with the aquaculture operation and flows to landing or harvest of the farmed product or products. You can see that between the aquaculture operation and landing or harvest, there is a yellow box with the number 1 in it. If you click on that box, text will appear in the white space below it. This text outlines the regulatory framework or requirements in place to land or harvest farmed seafood in New York. From there, you can continue following the arrows in the flowchart based on how you hope to bring your products to market and which markets are of interest to you. Every time you come across a numbered box, you can click on it to see any additional requirements or guidance necessary to get there from the preceding step in the chart. If you would prefer to see all the steps necessary to get a product from the sea, tank, or pond to your final market of interest at once, you can also use this flowchart to navigate directly to the individual market guides. Each of the light blue boxes on the right and left of the flowcharts represents the individual market guides, and when clicked, you will be taken to that guide in the PDF. You'll notice that the markets listed on the left and right sides of the flowchart are nearly identical. Which one you choose will depend on whether you plan to sell your products as is, meaning whole unprocessed, which are linked on the left side of the flowchart, or if you plan to process them into other forms like fillets and steaks or value-added products such as chowders, stews, and dips. Guides for getting processed product to market are linked on the right side of the flowchart. The individual market guides are each listed in the table of contents and can also be accessed there. Simply click on the specific market you are interested in accessing and you will jump to that section of the regulatory guide. While these are interactive guides meant to be easily viewed and accessed online, they are still PDFs and can be downloaded or printed. Downloaded versions viewed in Adobe Acrobat Reader will have the same interactive features and functionality as those viewed in your web browser. In printed versions, you will not be able to access the clickable features, including the content of the flowcharts. However, all the information contained in these flowcharts is included in the individual market guides, which can easily be printed and reviewed offline. But keep in mind, you can only access the additional resources linked throughout the guides when viewing them digitally and with an internet connection. To complement the regulatory guides and expand on some of the specific requirements outlined in them, a series of supplementary topical resources were developed to provide more detailed information on those topics. 9 topical resources were created, and each will be reviewed briefly now to highlight the type of information you can find in each and how it might be used to help you better access seafood markets. These guides will also be housed on the resource webpage at www.nycgrant.org seafood guides and access the same way you access the regulatory guides. Seafood Guide number 1 covers the various food labeling requirements that must be met to bring your products to market. This includes the information that must be present on a product label and specific food safety and handling statements that might be necessary for certain products. The requirements that apply to you as a producer will vary depending on your specific situation. For example, requirements for retailers are different from wholesale operations. Throughout this guide and all the resources being presented, there are a series of links that will take you to agency and professional resource pages that will provide more information on the topics covered. Keep in mind that you will need to access these in digital or online formats with internet connection to actively engage and access those links. These additional resources will not be accessible in printed versions. Seafood Guide 2 covers ways one can enhance food safety and marketability of their products. This guide specifically addresses hazards that should be considered when you're not directly subject to the seafood HACCP regulation. This includes fishermen and farmers selling their products unprocessed and will help them to understand what buyers are looking for to ensure they can meet the sourcing requirements outlined in the seafood HACCP regulation for wholesale buyers and food code or retail food service establishments. The hazards covered include histamine, pathogens, parasites, and aquaculture drugs, all of which rely on proper sourcing and temperature controls to minimize or prevent. Seafood Guide 3 covers the seafood HACCP regulation and provides an overview of the HACCP process and steps necessary to create and implement a seafood HACCP plan. HACCP plans are required for all wholesale seafood processors. It also contains information on Seafood HACCP Alliance's training program, which is offered through New York Sea Grant. Guide 4 reviews the good manufacturing practices, typically referred to as GMPs, that are applicable to all food processing operations. The Food and Drug Administration requires all food processing facilities to meet the requirements outlined in the GMP regulation, which cover sanitation and maintenance of food facilities to prevent, reduce, or eliminate the chances of food safety hazards during food processing operations. Guide number 5 provides additional details on sanitation practices and reviews the 8 key areas of sanitation, which include the safety of water used in a processing facility, the condition and cleanliness of surfaces within a facility, specifically those that are in direct contact with foods and are known as food contact surfaces, preventing cross-contamination of foods with potential food pathogens, the maintenance of hand washing, hand sanitizing, and toilet facilities, protecting foods from adulterants or contaminants not meant to be there, the proper labeling, storage, and use of toxic compounds such as cleansers or lubricants in a facility, the health of employees, and exclusion of pests such as insects and rodents that could contaminate food products. In addition to outlining these key areas of sanitation, the guide covers the recommended and required procedures for ensuring facilities are maintained in a clean and sanitary manner. Guide 6 covers allergens and cross-contact. Allergens are substances in foods that are recognized by the immune system and cause an allergic reaction when consumed by some. In the United States, there are 8 major food allergens identified, which account for about 90% of allergic reactions, and this includes fish and crustacean shellfish. It also covers how to properly control allergens, not only through proper labeling, but also prevention of cross-contact. Cross-contact occurs when one food allergen comes in contact with another. For instance, if you process fish and crab at the same time, the fish allergens transfer to the crab and vice versa. Since these are different allergens, someone who is not allergic to fish but is allergic to crab can experience an allergic reaction after consuming fish that has come in contact with crab. This guide will help you understand cross-contact and how it can be controlled and prevented. It also provides some information on other food intolerant substances that may be used in seafood products and must be controlled. Guide 7 provides information on seafood marketing. This includes an overview of the different markets that New York producers could access, ideas and resources for promoting and branding your seafood, and a variety of tools that can be helpful in marketing your products. While this guide provides a general overview, there are active links throughout that will take you to more detailed resources available to assist producers in marketing their catch or harvest. Guide number 8 highlights some best practices for delivery and mailing of seafood products. In addition to outlining best practices for handling, sanitation, and temperature controls, it also directs you to resources on eco-friendly packaging options, different regulations in place surrounding the transportation of foods, and the links to major shipping companies' resources on shipping perishable products like seafood. One last resource was created through the task force efforts with the help of a student worker, Omisha Manglani at Cornell University. This resource highlights the municipalities across Long Island that have local codes or ordinances in place specifically addressing the sale of seafood products, whether that be at farmers markets, farm stands, or even out of one's own home. Even though many municipalities don't specifically address the sale of seafood products in their local codes and ordinances, that does not mean it cannot be done. Links to Nassau and Suffolk County's lists of municipalities are provided in the document so producers can reach out directly to inquire about opportunities to sell their seafood products. That covers my overview of the regulatory guides and new topical resources that we have created. Keep in mind that these are meant to be living documents that will be updated over time as needs and requirements change. Be sure to check back regularly for the most up-to-date versions of each resource. Before opening it up to questions, I would like to make everyone aware of some additional resources and opportunities. The first is to highlight the recent announcement of an additional $5.7 million being allocated to the New York CARES Act Marine Fisheries Relief Program, as well as funds for Great Lakes fisheries. DEC is currently working on the spend plan for these funds, but you can stay up to date on their progress by visiting the DEC Fisheries Relief Program website, which is shown here, and I will share that in the chat box now. As part of future New York Sea Grant COVID response to assist New York producers interested in expanding to new markets, New York Sea Grant anticipates being able to offer free seafood HACCP training to interested producers. More guidance on this potential opportunity will be made available later this year, but anyone interested can reach out to me now and we can make sure to keep you informed as training opportunities are explored. Knowing who is interested in this opportunity will help us to determine where and how training should be offered if possible. At this point, I'd like to open it up for any questions you may have. Remember, you can send your questions in the chat box or raise your hand and we will ask you to unmute to ask your question. Are there any questions? All right, are cultivated oysters defined and labeled as farmed raised? That is a good question, and I don't believe there is any stipulation that requires you to indicate them as farm raised, but I will have to look into that to confirm that for you. Thank you, Diane. Any other questions? So as far as the oysters, they do need to be labeled with the source, but those labels are not necessarily displayed at retail. All right. If there are no other questions, how long are fishermen going to be able to sell off their trucks or property which started because of COVID? That I can't speak to. That would be a question for Ag and Markets. I believe there might be someone from Ag and Markets. I don't know if Linda, if you have an answer to that, but again, I can't necessarily speak to that because that's up to the agency.
I'm not sure. I don't have an answer. I'd have to check with the inspectors to find out because they have they have temporary regulations in place, but I will get back to you, Mike, and you can post it.
Great. Thanks, Linda.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks, Diane. We'll get back to you on both those questions. I'll dig deeper and learn a little bit more to share that with you. Any other questions? All right, great. So I'd now like to turn the screen over to Gifty Ostrander with the Small Business Development Center at Stony Brook to share some more about the center and some of their resources and services that may help you enhance your seafood business and access new markets. Gifty, the screen is yours.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I want to share my screen now, if that's going to be possible.
I should make you. Yes, good.
Okay, so my name is Gifty from the Stony Brook Small Business Development Center. I'm a certified business advisor. I just want to talk about a few of our services and the resources we have, as well as a few of the grant programs that are currently going on. We are at the Stony Brook University in the Research and Development Park. We're funded by the SBA and SUNY. We offer support services to businesses. We offer referrals to consultants and service providers. We offer workshops and seminars on business education. And we do this primarily to help business owners solve problems, which leads to increased productivity and profitability. Now, our agenda for today, as I said, would be to talk about Sbdc services, the resources, and I have 3 grant programs that I would talk about. That's the additional assistance funding under the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which Mike just mentioned, the New York State Small Business Recovery Grant Program, as well as the Paycheck Protection Program. So as business advisors, we offer free one-on-one counseling services to anyone who would like to have service. We do not charge for it. As I said, it's free. It's open to the general public. It's confidential as well. We offer small business startup services or expansion services, business plan development. We assist with financial projections for your business, as well as financial management skills. We offer loan information assistance, marketing, including social media, digital marketing, SEO, all that package. We do offer that as well to businesses. Import and export, procurement opportunities, technology and innovation, as well as help businesses develop continuity plans, especially those who've been affected by the pandemic and want to create a plan to move forward and sustain the business. We do offer assistance for that. And then we also have monthly business solutions roundtable meetings where business owners come together to discuss problems they're facing. We find solutions and sort of network as well. So some of the resources available to the Sbdc includes a research network with a central office in Albany. We have a dedicated team of experienced librarians. They can access information for you, obtain data, and help you with your research needs. It's very important to obtain critical market information beyond what you can do on, say, Google. So we offer information on competitors, on business plans, on industry trends, on industry profiles, what the market looks like, pricing strategies. A whole lot of information can be accessed for you. We also are based in the university. We're one of the 24 Sbdcs in New York. All the Sbdcs are university-based, so we have access to their resources. We have the School of Engineering, the School of Applied Sciences, we have the College of Business. We have access to all their resources, which helps us to keep up with speed with business development. And then we also have partnership with the SBA as well. So we are resource partners with them, and we have access to their resources. They provide a lot of funding programs, loan programs, and we do have access to information. We assist small business to fill out forms, complete applications, review their forms. We have a lot of resources that we can offer to small businesses. We are liaising with the university, with the SBA, with our central office, and many, many other partners as well. So I'd like to talk briefly about the grant programs that are ongoing. On March 29th, there was an announcement made by NOAA Fisheries regarding the allocation of additional funds to support activities previously authorized under the CARES Act. So this is to support that and move it forward. The funds will be used to address direct or indirect fishery-related impacts. Eligible applicants will include commercial fishermen, charter businesses, qualified aquaculture operations, subsistence, cultural, and ceremonial users, processors, and other fishery-related businesses. Funds have also been allocated for all federally recognized tribes. So 30 million allocated for that, as well as 15 million has been allocated for the Great Lakes states. So the website is down here where you could get additional information on the funding program. So allocations for the Great Lakes and tribes are expected to be announced soon. New York will be eligible to receive funding from both the Marine and Coastal States funding, which has been allocated, as well as the 15 million for the Great Lakes states. So we're waiting to see how much gets allocated to New York for the Great Lakes states. But as of now, New York has been allocated $5.696 million. Now, to receive assistance, eligible participants must demonstrate economic revenue losses greater than 35% as compared to prior 5 years average, similar to the previous package that was announced earlier last year. Now, each state will determine how to demonstrate the 35% standard loss. Now, states and territories will revise their prior spend plans. So right now, that is what is happening. The DEC working on revising their spend plans has got to be in compliance with NOAA guidance, as well as the Consolidated Appropriations Act, as well as the CARES Act. So it's in the works right now, and the spend plans will provide details on the proposed process for making fishery loss determinations. So they will tell you how the determinations would be made. Participants will have to work with their state marine fisheries management. So right now, DEC is working on that. It's going to follow a similar pattern. They just need to wait for approval from NOAA, and then further announcements will be made. There is also the COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant. Now, the approved New York State fiscal year 2021-22 budget was announced on April 6 this year, and that includes $800 million in grant funding for small businesses impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Priority will be given to micro businesses, minority and women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, small businesses who did not qualify for federal assistance or did not receive sufficient assistance. So if you were affected by the pandemic, you didn't receive assistance at all, or you didn't receive enough assistance, you have an opportunity here to apply as well. Anyone actually would be able to apply for that, and priority would just be given to these groups. Socially and economically disadvantaged business owners as well would be given priority. So it's, you know, important for small businesses to look into this grant that has just been announced. Now, the grant will be administered by the Empire State Development, and they are currently drafting regulations for the program. So we don't have much details yet. We will provide details on our website as soon as we know more about it. Possible uses of the grant has been determined as payroll, rent or mortgage payments, insurance, utilities, personal protective equipment, heating and ventilation and air conditioning, and other machinery or equipment costs necessary for compliance with COVID-19 health and safety protocols. And information was obtained from the New York Assembly as a website, as well as the governor's office. So we do have the source listed here on the program. But as I said, we're waiting for more details so we can provide additional information on this particular program. I also want to mention the Paycheck Protection Program. I'm sure most of you know about it. It's been around for a while now. It was reopened again on January 11th this year. It was, to give people a chance for the first draw borrowers, that's those who never applied, had their chance, still have a chance to apply for it. So the Paycheck Protection Program is a loan designed to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on payroll. Any small business concern that meets SBA's size standards, either by industry-based size or alternative size standard, can apply. Not only formally registered businesses like LLCs or S corps, but even sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed persons are also eligible. So if you do have a business, you're a sole proprietor, definitely you're eligible to apply for the PPP. The funds PPP can be used for payroll costs, including benefits, mortgage interest, rent, utilities, worker protection costs, uninsured property damage costs, certain supplier costs and expenses. Also, PPP, sorry about that, was open for second draw borrowers, meaning those who got funding the first time are also eligible to apply for a second draw. That opened in January as well. Businesses with 300 or fewer employees are welcome to apply for a second draw. If you have used or will use the full amount of your first PPP, you are still eligible to apply. You have to show a 25% gross revenue decline in any 2020 quarter compared with the same quarter in 2019. Now, the SBA will forgive loans if employee retention criteria are met and the funds are used for eligible expenses. So it starts out as a loan, but then it gets converted to a grant. You've forgiven the loan. If you do apply for forgiveness within a certain time frame and your eligibility criteria is met and you're approved, then you do get forgiven. The loans it turns into a grant. So the Paycheck Protection Program ends on May 31st this year, and all eligible entities can apply through available lenders. So it's important, if you haven't applied for PPP, you can look into it. You can reach out to our office. We assist small businesses who want to apply for any grant program, any loans. We assist with paperwork. We review the application forms with them. We're just here to assist. So if you're interested in any program, you can let us know. We can look into it and see how best we can assist. I want to find out if there are any questions at this time regarding any of the programs or any other program you may have heard of, and if we can be of any assistance.
Isti, I have a question for you.
Sure.
For assistance with these programs, especially those that haven't yet been released and you don't know all the details, is it best for those interested in potentially accessing these resources to kind of reach out and start those conversations now, or should they wait until more information is available?
Wait until more is available, because then we'll have specifics on the eligibility criteria, how much funding could, be available per business and all that. So we definitely need the details so we can hold a more solid conversation, but yeah, we're working on it. Most of the programs that came out sort of are nearing the end of it. The application period is over, so we're not really talking about it right now because it's, it's almost over. There is another program that's ongoing, but that's a loan program. I wasn't sure if we were talking about loan programs today. I was just trying to sort of narrow it down to grants, but there are many other programs out there that have, launched, but more on the loan side of things. It's got to be paid back. It's not a grant. So if you're interested in any of that, yes, you could reach out to us. SBA has so many programs out there to assist small businesses who are seeking funding.
Thanks, Gifty.
Sure.
Are there any other questions for Gifty? All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, Gifty. If any questions do come up, you guys have the contact information for the center. I will also follow up with an email and include that contact information as well as links to the resource webpage as well as the recording. I will post my contact information and leave it on. I'm happy to answer any other questions. If there are any other questions that came up related to the resource guides presented, but we will get back to those questions that we didn't have direct answers for just yet. And back to the shellfish question, as far as I'm aware, there are no requirements for labeling a oysters farm at the retail level, but they do need to be accompanied by their dealer tags, which indicate that information for wholesale sale.
Okay, I see a question here in the chat. Gifty, are there any funds available for startup businesses in the fishing industry, and who should we contact? So yes, there are funds, startup funds. Basically, you could contact us and we could give you information on what the programs are for startup businesses, because startup businesses are, unique. They have special funding requirements, and special eligibility requirements. You could reach out to us definitely, and we could give you some information.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I'll stick around for a little bit in case there are any other questions, but that was all we had to share today. Again, we will be posting all of the recordings on there. We'll also be posting the video guide to navigating the resources. And you're welcome to reach out to me and contact me if you have any questions about those or anything related to some of the efforts that we have going on. And be on the lookout for future opportunities, especially related to our potential opportunity to offer free hacks of training for producers.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks again for joining us, Gifty.
You're welcome.
Those resources.
Yes.
And I encourage everybody to really reach out and take advantage of the resources the center has to offer.